It is right at about 7 a.m. in the morning. And today we have the goal, there's the dogs, we have the goal of getting this car to run and drive under its own power. So there's basically 4 things that I need to do on it. The first is a throttle cable, the second is swap the steering column, the third is replace the brakes, and the fourth is put the gas tank, the new one that I bought, back in the car. In my mind, I feel like, oh, I can get this done in, 4 hours tops, an hour for each thing, but honestly, I know it's going to take longer than that, especially with the brakes. So, we'll see. We'll start with that. I'm hoping by 4 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be able to drive this car around. We'll see. So something that's fairly important is the ability to control the throttle from inside the car. And this throttle cable is the way you do it. So, there's 2 types. There is basically 2 types of cables. One has a clamp and one has a plastic square that pops into the bracket. So what we have here is the new style bracket for the plastic square type and the old style cable for the clamp type. And this is how the car came. I put this on thinking I could get it to work, but it's just not. It's Bubba. That's basically what it is. So they had put these hose clamps on there to try to keep it, and this rubber grommet to try to keep it in the wrong bracket. And the first time I tried to use it, it never worked. So I have bought the right one. So here's the right cable, or the right bracket, and then the clamp for it. I'll put that on and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So here's the bracket installed. I am goofed up and I realized I bought, it says 69 to 72 accelerator cable bracket with all Holley carburetors. So obviously this is not a Holley, but I figured instead of returning it and waiting to get another one and blah blah blah, I'm just gonna make it work. I'm gonna go with a quadrijet on this engine. When I get the hood back on and everything, but I had to cut the little tab off, and then I had to kind of bend down the bracket for the springs, but it works. So you go inside, you press the gas pedal, you get to about here, and the carb is at wide open throttle. And yeah, so now, which I couldn't do this before, now I can, when I'm cranking the engine, I can step on the accelerator. The next issue I have with this car is, well, the steering column. So there's like 8 issues, and we'll start with them. So the first is the ignition switch. There is a key for this column, you can see right here, but I mean, this ignition switch basically just rotates. It doesn't move the rod. Something's broken inside of here. Second is it has the death wobble that most of these tilt columns do. I'm missing all the levers. This housing right here, sadly, is broken on the bottom. I mean, this piece right here is expensive. The turn signal, that's questionable. It's been outside. You can see how faded the plastic is. It's just been outside in the sun for decades. I had to add this hub, nut, and steering wheel because when I had it first, there was nothing here and it was impossible to turn the car, so I added it. The other thing is it's missing the top bell portion. It's missing the springs. It's missing all the horn stuff. It's missing the tilt stuff. It's missing the telescope stuff and the horn button and all that. I mean, it's missing so much. I could restore this column. It would probably cost, in parts alone, at least 500 bucks. So I got to thinking, how can we get around this? I mean, technically this column would steer the car, even though it, does this. And I could technically use the ignition switch like I have been with a screwdriver, but that's just not, we need to fix it. So I have a solution for this. So here's my solution. This is a standard column. It actually came out of a 1973 Corvette that I worked on for a guy, and he didn't like it because it puts the steering wheel like right at your chest, which I totally get. So he purchased this tilt and telescoping one, and this came out. Why I'm using this one, I already have it. 2, I know the turn signals work, I know the horn works, I know the ignition switch will work. That's actually the one that's in the car that I just showed you came off of this column. And so I know it all works, I know it will bolt in, and I know it will be fine. I have taken the time to paint it. It was black, now I'm painting it blue. you know, so it looks really nice. And we'll put this in. Some people might see that as a downgrade, but you know what? I see it as 4 things that will work that didn't before by just swapping the column. That column has 3 bolts until it comes out, and we can get it out. So this column has these 2 bolts in the bottom that hold it to the support, and they've been undone. Why? I just don't know. And then underneath here in the back, there are 2 bolts that hold the support onto the firewall. And then from there, we have one that attaches to the rag joint. And since all the electronics are already unplugged, we can pull it right out. It is time to install this column, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a secret when it comes to putting these in. So in this car, it needed a rag joint. Almost all the cars that you get will need a rag joint. So the key is to install half of it first. So I have the steering box side installed, and then this bracket is what goes on the end of the steering column. Now, normally you could just put the bracket on the column out of the car and then stick it in, but the problem is the hole through the firewall, I don't know if you can see that right there, it's too small to fit this. So the key is stick the end of the column through the firewall, stick this on the column, tighten it up, and then stick this on the other half of the rag joint. And you should have a lot easier of a time installing the column than trying to fight to get this through the firewall. With the column sticking through like that, we can go ahead and put this on there. And once that is on there, believe it or not, one of these bolts is smaller than the other. So one's big, one's little. And it fits on just like that. And that's how it finished product. This car now has 2 things that it never had when I owned it. So the first is a working key cylinder so that the column starts and stops the car. The second is a steering wheel. It never had that before either. So, and it locks just like that. So now what we can do, I'm going to put the battery back in the car. We can see if the column will turn the engine over, and then also if we can get turn signals. It's worth a shot. That's pretty much what the column needs to do besides work the horn. So we might as well check out now if it all works before we put the dash in, do all that other stuff that we're going to do. But in order to drive it, that had to be put in. Here's the moment of truth. I have the battery plugged in. That should be on. Don't hear anything or see anything. Let's see what happens when we do this. Alright, it does that. That's the most important part. As for the turn signal, I don't get anything. And nothing's lighting up. So that'll be something else we'll have to troubleshoot. I kind of just threw the accordion or the harmonica clip together. It's possible that it's dirty, but it turns the engine over with the key, and that's what we want. So here's the battery that's going to go in the car. It came out of that same car that the engine came out of, but it's a battery from January of 2021. I have these special little adapters that will convert basically a top post battery to side post cables. I don't want to cut the cables and add anything like this, so I have these. But before I put these on, I want to test this battery, and I have this cool battery tester from Top Don. It is BT300P, and basically what you can do, you can hook it up and you can do a couple things with it. You can do a battery test, you can do a cranking test, a charging test, review data, and change the language. I can't do the cranking or the charging test, you know, while the battery's out of the car, but I can do a battery test to see if it's any good. So we're going to click battery test, regular battery, cold cranking amps. And it says it's 100% healthy. The cool part is it does have like a little printer, and it comes with these rolls of paper that if for some reason you wanted to print it with someone else or keep the printout with a battery, you can, but anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that. If you guys want to pick one of these up, you can, I'm going to put a code down in the bottom. You can pick them up on Amazon. They're fairly cheap and, you know, good to have, especially if you're wondering about, you know, how well your battery's doing or anything like that. I usually use a multimeter, but I'll start using it. The battery is in. So now, I'm going to turn the key and make sure nothing smokes. Still cranks. That's good. We'll be starting off today with brakes. So I only buy calipers from Lone Star Caliper. Make sure you get the O-ring ones. They're worth the money. You see people all the time that, you know, go to AutoZone and buy the $75 calipers, and then, you know, even right as they put them on or a month later they're already leaking. I've never had issues with these calipers. They come painted ready to go, which is great. So that's why I like to put these on. But we'll get these installed. I also have a proportioning valve I want to install since I have it, and then we're going to bleed the brakes. Another thing that I bought for this car is all brand new mounting hardware. The bolts that were on it, all the lock washers were broken and the heads were kind of rounded off. I also bought brand new brake pads. We'll see how good this brand is. But I'm going to put the pads in the calipers and the calipers on the car, and then we're going to work on this proportioning valve. I'm not looking forward to that. We have our first casualty. Yeah, I rounded the line off on the bottom. I couldn't see it. I was able to get all the other lines off fairly well, but that one I just couldn't see it, and before I knew it, it came off. So, the problem with that proportioning valve is they stopped using it, I believe, in 1973. So that means I have to find the line that goes from here, runs down the frame over to the passenger side front. You can kind of see it right here. Weirdly enough, these lines have been replaced before. I'm surprised it broke. We're gonna go look at my parts cards and see if I can't find something. If you guys don't know already, I have quite a few Corvette parts cars. Basically, I sell parts off of them as part of my business. I don't get very many chrome bumper cars in, but I do have one. It's super, super rough, but I think it has the part that I want. So this car used to be a 1969 Corvette. Used to be. It's got a rusty frame, a rusty bird cage. Actually has a rabbit living underneath it. Oh, you guys see the rabbit? He's right there. There you go. But weirdly enough, I think it has the brake line that I want, which would be great for me. So it looks like out of all the brake lines on this car, the one I want has been replaced. It looks like it's in pretty good shape. So getting lucky right there. Hopefully I don't round this one off when I take it off. But installing it's not so hard. I say that now before I try it. Basically there's a couple bolts on the front. There should be some on the sides, but I don't think they put those back on because they've been replaced. Goes in the proportioning and then goes over to the right front brake. We have victory. So I was able to get that one out without it twisting like the other one, and then this one came out pretty easy too. So now all we got to do is zip the 3 bolts off the front. We should be good. This is a rusty crusty one, that's for sure. I'm amazed this car is still giving parts, but that's really why I don't scrap many things. I keep most everything until the very end, just because, guess what? It saved me today. This is the only chrome bumper car I have out here right now, and it's the only one that would have had this part. Well, that wasn't too bad. The biggest fight that I had was fighting a transmission cooler line up in here, but put the passenger side in first, and then you can snake that one up, because the passenger side you have to loop up over the frame and then back under the control arm, so it has to come up, over, and then around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that proportioning block back in and then attach all of this stuff once I get it all in. But now we have a line that's not going to leak. it actually works. And we'll go from there. So new proportioning block is right here. Let's get it done. All right, proportioning block is in, new brake line is in. All new calipers, pads, and lines are all in on all 4 corners. And it's 10 o'clock, so 3 hours later, all this stuff got done. More like 2.5. I didn't start exactly at 7, but doing this all in one day, I don't think it's gonna happen, but time to bleed the brakes. And then from there, it's really just gas tank and steering column. Hopefully those won't take too long, but I know bleeding the brakes is gonna take probably at least an hour, if not longer. I do have this cool new tool that I bought. Basically, it's an upgrade from the old Coke bottle with a hose in it. It has a check valve that doesn't let anything back up. So once you push the air out and it goes into the bottle, it stays in the bottle. It doesn't ever get sucked back up. So we're gonna try this out and see how well it works. That took forever. I used pedal bleeding, pressure bleeding, and gravity bleeding, but we finally got, I think, most of the air out of the line. So the problem is there was no fluid in the car other than master cylinder. And with that being said, there was a lot of air to get out, but it's all out. We have caliper and line on this corner. We have obviously the line that goes all the way to the front. Here in the back, same thing. 2 lines, new caliper, new pads. Around this way, we the same. And then, of course, the front driver, we have that as well. So now, we can put the wheels on it, and we can start the car, and we can see if the transmission will move. Since I have the car up in the air, I might as well do this. I'm gonna check the fluid in the diff. I'm not worried about it because, I mean, there is a little bit of blackness, but it's not actively leaking. But I wanna check the actual level of the fluid because A, it's easy, and I just did this on a Cadillac that I was working on, and I have the stuff out. So we're gonna take this plug out, stick my finger in the hole, and see if there's any fluid left, which there should be. And then if not, we're gonna top it off and go from there. But the good news is you can see the stub axles on each side, they're not sticking out. So that means the diff inside is probably in good shape. Yeah, we got diff fluid. That's good. All right, I'm just gonna top it off and then put the plug back in and be done. Here under the hood, I've addressed a couple housekeeping things. First, I switched out this gasket. As you can see, it was trash to begin with, and you can see right there's a little bit of a vacuum leak, or a lot bit of a vacuum leak. But I have a brand new one underneath the carburetor, so we can throw that in the trash. I hooked up our transmission vacuum. I hooked up the distributor vacuum. I hooked up the PCV valve. I attached all the wiring to this alternator, which it wasn't there before. Hopefully we don't have an issue with wiring. I never did hook it up when I tested everything before. And then I hooked up the PCV and checked the oil. I might put a quart of transmission fluid in the transmission just in case. It does show up on the dipstick when I put it in, so I'm not too worried about it. The fluid that came out of it, I drained it and refilled it, and it looked pretty good. Again, I don't think this got any water in it or anything like that, but we'll have to see if the transmission moves or not once the car is started. As I said before, we have a key and we have a throttle pedal, which is good. The next thing I need to do is I need to hook up the key release, because now that maybe I already did. Well, I just moved the lever up. So there's a lever on the bottom of the column that makes it so you can't take the key out whenever you have the car not in park. So we're going to address that. I need to lube up the shifter. I need to put the battery in, and then I need to fill it up with gas. Look how pretty it is. Brand new tank. Beautiful inside. I have all my pieces to go on it. My neck, a couple gaskets. I have a new sender that also came with some gaskets. And then the gas tank itself also came with some gaskets and some bolts, so that's good. So I should have enough stuff to put it all together, and it should go up into the car real easily. Alright, it is the moment of truth. Gassed up, battery connected. I've double checked whatever I can double check. Random hose. So let's sit in the car and see if she will fire up. It's weird starting it from in here. Oh, I do have all this stuff on the ground, which is kind of inconvenient, but I'll try to work around that. Starts right up. Let me check for fuel leaks. Ugh. I don't see anything. All right, we have a brake pedal. Let's see what happened. It's moving. Moving. Oh. Uh-oh, we're dying. Why are we dying? That's a choke issue. The reason it was idling down like that. But we're gonna jump back in here. Sorry, I didn't clean the windshield. Oh, it shifted, and it shifted really nice. You guys probably can't see a thing. I can't see a thing. I have no rearview mirror. I got one. I have no idea how fast I'm going. Oh, manual brakes are not where it's at, man. Hook up the booster and see if it leaks. Yeah, we turned around. Yeah, it shifts really nice. We'll have to check the fluid, and then next is we're gonna put the power steering and power brakes on. I'll tell you what, these brakes need some more. I don't know if they need more bleeding or just the power hooked up, but it's interesting to stop it, that's for sure. go. Oh, this car. It did it. It drove around the block. It sounded awful, but it did pretty good. All the things I feel like I've messed with, I've touched. It did well with. So the tires, the brakes are okay. We'll fix that. It ran okay. I think I need to put a different carburetor on it. I also think my springs were getting hung up on this. So we'll have to mess with that. We'll have to mess with the choke. See what we can do with that. But just for kicks. Let's see what happens. See if it fires up. There we go. Yeah, we'll rebuild a carburetor for it, but alright, I hooked up the brake booster. Let's drive it around one more time. That way I can steer with two hands. Be less worried about filming, more worried about driving. I also disabled the choke. Seems to run a lot better without the choke. Need to fix that exhaust leak, I already knew that. Clean the windshield for you too. What do you think? Come on. Yeah, we're gonna have to fix the power steering. So far, so good though. Speedometer cable's working. It's spinning here under the dash. That's good. We'll have a working speedo. So weird not having rear view mirror. And that is what I wanted to get accomplished today. I wanted to drive around the block, and I did that twice. And it ran fairly well. It drove well, it stopped well, it steered okay, it needs power steering. But yeah, other than that, it sounded pretty good. I know that a carb rebuild or a different carburetor will probably be a good idea for it, just because I know a well-tuned carburetor will work wonders. I also probably need to set the timing again and check the dwell and do all that fun stuff you do with ignition. So anyway, there it is. There's one more video on this 72.